Season started with so many concerns, and now just a few days later, the Nuggets season is trending absolutely in the right direction after two big wins. We've got stuff on the Nuggets wins over the Warriors and the Thunder in the home opener, Jamal Murray's home return. Some comments from MPJ that might make you raise your eyebrows in a good way. And all that and lots more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks for joining us and making this your first listen. I appreciate you guys being with us. We're doing this on a Sunday night. Want to go ahead and get the recaps from two big Nuggets wins out the way. On today's show, we'll talk about those wins over the Warriors and the Thunder. We'll talk about what we've learned about the Nuggets after the first three games, what things that we're still kind of curious about, the general trend and direction of the team, which I have to say is pretty positive after the last two wins, as wins tend to do. And we'll look at the game versus the Blazers. I was in the locker room for the first time in 3 years, which is weird. And I spoke with MPJ and Christian Braun. We'll have some commentary on those comments as well in the show. I want to let you know today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON.
Your first take, though, man. I have to get your first take.
Yep. Eloy Zamora, which, by the way, did not know Zamora's name was Eloy. The Jazz loss, no looking so bad. That's absolutely true after the Jazz beat the Timberwolves and then beat the Pelicans, the undefeated Utah Jazz. So, like, that's the whole thing, right? It's like we look at it and we go, okay, they lost to this Jazz team that's supposed to be terrible. And then, it turns out no, the Jazz have competent NBA players and they're pretty well coached. It looks like Will Hardy's, at least early on, the message is getting through. So that reframes the Nuggets losing on the road in the Jazz home opener quite a bit, don't you think?
Definitely does. It contextualizes it quite a bit. And more importantly, you mentioned the good coach. It's too early for me to really know. It's not like I have an opinion on this. It's just whenever there's a new coach, you're wondering, are they horrible or are they like the next bright young coach? This team's off to an incredible start and they're taking and making a bunch of threes. Maybe there's something there. We'll find out.
Yeah, the jokes on Twitter are pretty fun during all these wins because everyone's just like, Danny Ainge is just furious right now. Just absolutely furious and desperately trying to find ways to get this team to lose more. By the way, I'm Matt Moore, senior NBA writer for the Action Network. He's Adam Mares from DNVR. All right, so let's talk about the two wins that we've seen since the last time we did a show. Friday night, they get a win versus the Warriors in Golden State. Big time win. Jamal Murray does not play. MPJ hits a ton of big shots. The MPJ stuff I think is really interesting. I'd like to talk about his overall performance maybe in the second segment leading into the third. What was your big takeaway from the war? We were going to talk about these two wins together. And we can talk about some overarching things. But as far as the Friday night win versus the Warriors, what was your big takeaway on that game?
The defense, or just the flexibility when you're able to put out Bruce Brown, KCP, Michael Porter Jr. I thought the ball was popping all night. And Denver just looked really good with that lineup. It's a lineup to me that I look at and I go, at this very moment, meaning right now where Jamal Murray is in his recovery, I feel just as good with that as I do with Jamal Murray as the starter. And that's an exciting thing because we know Murray's going to miss a lot of time. So coming off of the Utah game, seeing them play so poorly and then see there, that game, Matt, it wasn't a blowout win for Denver, but it was a comfortable win that they blew at the end to make it look like it wasn't a comfortable win. But they were up, I think, 10 points with a minute to go. So yeah. That was one of those games where I think you should feel a little good about how Denver performed in that one. They scored at will, and they did a lot of things that you felt like were repeatable.
I think the best way is like a wire-to-wire, right? I think it was, or near wire-to-wire in terms of having control of the game for the duration of it. It was interesting because my wife was actually asking about it. She's like, they had it, and then it got close at the end. Like, what happened? And I told her, I was like, this is what the Warriors do. Is they either run it up on you and just completely run away with it and clown you, or their entire thing is if we just keep this close and apply enough pressure, teams will usually crack in that last 2 minutes.
And that's the thing is, I would almost phrase it another way. I think they are the best team all time, every iteration of them, the best team all time at being down 10 with 1 minute to go. Because they're like the best Hail Mary team in the NBA. They're like, if there was a team in football that was just great at Hail Marys, that's like what they are. They're just, Steph Curry pulled up from 35 feet to start it off. And it's one of those shots where you can't overextend and guard them. You have to sort of, you can go out there, but you're going to stretch yourself too thin. He hits it. They get a couple steals. Things happen. But nonetheless, like I said, I say all of that to say that Denver was up 10 points or 9 points or whatever it was. And on the Warriors, that's a pretty sizable lead.
Yeah, that absolutely was. And I think, one of the other interesting things was how good the bench unit was, obviously. And that's in that game. And just in terms of they got scoring production, right? They get 24 from Jeff Green. Jeff Green had himself a weekend. Like Jeff Green had a weekend. But they get 24 from Bones and Jeff Green. And the defense actually is able to kind of compete. It really is. It's a little bit more of like what we expected, right? Where the second unit is going to look bad, but somewhere between 40% and 60% of the time. Like it might be 45%, it might be 60%, but it's going to be between 40 and 60% of the time. As long as the bench does not look terrible 100% of the time, or like 90% of the time, the Nuggets are going to be fine. Like just being a higher variance group is such an improvement on last year. And I think honestly, both games over the weekend kind of showed that.
Yeah. It was, and guys, tell me in the chat, some people are saying my audio is bad. Yes, we're using Restream and I'm at my office. To me, it looks crystal clear. So this is what makes this hard, is we never know it's bad because I look crystal clear. You're right. Bones Highland was so phenomenal. His best 5 minutes of basketball might have come between the first and second quarters against the Warriors. And that was why Denver won. In the next game, I thought Bones Highland was very bad against the Oklahoma City Thunder, but the starters were so dominant and so good. So you're right that we haven't actually seen a good bench, good starter rotation just yet in any of the games. But it is encouraging to know that you have a player like Bones who's going to be hot and cold. He's a second-year player, but whose peaks are so high.
It's not surprising that Bruce Braun is as good as he is with the starting unit. Like that, he just very clearly is a guy that plays at the type of the way that he plays, the intelligence he plays with, and the versatility. It's just going to mesh very well with Joker, and it's going to mesh very well with the other high end weapons. Like, I don't know how much of a floor raiser Bruce Braun is. I think he's a ceiling raiser, and I think that he can be make certain combinations go from good to great. But I don't necessarily think that like we've seen Braun kind of like in that first game, right? Kind of like vanish a little bit. Thought he was really good with the starters in the second game on Saturday. Thought he was good overall. Like his defense in person, by the way, just it stands out so much. Like Bruce Brown's defense, when I was in the arena, there was like 5 different things on every possession. He was just so much more involved and active and disruptive. It was honestly kind of jarring at him from what I'm used to seeing from Nuggets perimeter defenders. Like just seeing a guy that's like, hey, I'm not lunging for this pass and put myself out of position. I'm just going to get a hand up and disrupt a little bit so that you have to throw it a little bit further back so that you can't just catch and get. Like small things that Bruce Braun does are really impactful, it feels like, for the Nuggets.
He's been great, super high IQ. I'm so impressed with him. I do wonder though, I love him with the starters. I merely like him with the bench, and I'm curious to see if that continues.
Yeah, and I don't know how to solve that. Like I don't think that there's any. I mean, there can be like a temporary discussion going around the media room with where Jamal is at, and he looked pretty good and had a really good third quarter on Saturday. But the discussion kind of going around the media room was like, would you ever consider, moving Jamal to the bench until he gets his legs back under him? Not as a permanent thing, just
Right.
like, hey, let's let Jamal kind of ease in. Because, he has like the emotional, like the intro, the arena. We'll talk about that in the second segment, but like it was crazy. But like you could start Bruce Brown in place of Jamal, and that makes that starting unit better. And if the second unit is fine, and then maybe if you need to go to Ish, like you do have some options there that are maybe better. Because I kind of agree with you that when you have a connector like Bruce Brown, but Bones is playing the way that he is, and there's so little now. Maybe another guy we're going to talk about in that second segment, Christian Braun. Maybe he changes that equation a little bit. Good call by you, but I think in maybe that changes a little bit. But I get what you're saying about how Bruce Brown fits with that second unit because he's a connector with not necessarily tight, snug connections on either end.
I think the Jamal part is more likely than any other. And I think that's the master plan, is to have, like Michael Malone in the preseason said Jamal will be the guy that they'd like to stagger. And I'm kind of excited about that. If you told me it's, Jamal, Bones, Bruce, that's a good combo right there. And then on top of that, you do have Christian Braun, who's really emerged. We should talk about it in the second segment, because to me, we all wanted Ish. Even I wanted Ish to go. Seeing what Christian Braun did these last two games, it feels like a better solution even than what we expected from Ish, just by virtue of how good he is defensively, how big he is. And I don't know if he's going to continue to make shots, but when he does make them, it sure helps you win.
It's interesting because like I haven't. We'll talk about this. I haven't thought of it in terms of Ish or Brown. Like for me, it's strictly Davon or Brown. And so
no question.
And so if that's the equation, then I think there's probably room for an Ish, Bones, Brown, Green, Jordan combination.
Could
right?
be. There's defense there. You need defense on the perimeter, and that gives you a little bit of that. So maybe.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the two wins and what we kind of seen from the Nuggets. A lot of optimistic things to see. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I've got to tell you about today's sponsor, which is PrizePicks. As I pull up our fancy overlay that I have to go to and pause to try and get this thing figured out. There we go. All right, PrizePicks. So it's really simple to play. It's absolutely awesome. You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they will score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you're just playing the numbers, right? So you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections. So let's say that the number is like 9, like just a number out of the book, like 9 points. Who doesn't score 9 points in a game? Like in a full athletic contest.
Who are you talking about right now?
Who doesn't score more than 9?
Are you talking about the Broncos
in a game? I don't know.
Are you trolling the Denver Broncos fans that gave you 5 stars again? Oh my god!
I
was so busy today, I didn't even watch the game, so I didn't even see it.
But you could do something like Grayson Allen has been a very good one of those. He hurt me the other night by not going over his total. But those are the kind of things that you can do on PrizePicks. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch, including NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy, safe, and fast withdrawals. And they're currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks is going to give you $100. If you put in $50, you're going to get $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, and sign up for an instant deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys joining us late. We're recording this late on Sunday night. We're recapping the 2 wins by the Denver Nuggets over the weekend. We're talking about the bench unit a lot. I feel like we should talk about the starters some more, including you and I get into the weeds, right? Like we like talking about like the rotations and the concepts and all these things. We really got to mention this. Like Nikola ties Wilt Chamberlain's record for most triple doubles by a center in Saturday's game. Now, like that's like a very specific thing. I think the thing that Malone said this, and I actually think it's really great. When you are when the comparison is Wilt Chamberlain, you're doing pretty well. Like that's kind of the thing, is that nobody has done what Joker has done at this position, with this size, with this combination at this position since Wilt. And that really is impressive. I thought Joker's game, it was really interesting to watch him on Saturday. Saturday, in my opinion, was absolutely, now a lot of it was the doubles. Like he talked about how like they were doubling. But like I felt like Saturday was very much this is a good opportunity for me to work on getting the rest of the team going. Like we don't. Okay, go. Then that's interesting.
No, because to me, this was like the Thunder. This is why sometimes we can oversimplify things, or we talk about, oh, they were doubling. This was a unique type of doubling. They were all out doubling. They were, as soon as he gets the ball, send the body. Don't disguise it. Don't play in between. Don't play cat and mouse. Full on double to get the ball out of his hand, and then trust your rotations on the backside. And so to me, I don't think Jokic came into the game thinking anything. I think he thought, they're going to wall off and try to make it so that I don't score any points, and I'm just going to hit shooters for it. And he did. KCP knocked down his shots in this one, got a lot of looks. Michael Porter started slow, but then he started knocking them down. And then, of course, Christian Braun. But to me, I don't think Jokic had a mentality of, I'm going to do this or that. I just think they were like, we're going to force the ball out of your hands.
Yeah, and you're right. Like that goes against what I've said oftentimes, which is that he doesn't go in with agendas, right? Like he doesn't plot out, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. He's just like, I'm gonna read and react. Maybe in a better way is for me to think of it from the terms of, maybe that was like a good thing, right? To get everybody involved, to get the ball. Like you tweeted that the ball was popping. It definitely was. It was working. And I'll say this too, like there was work being done by everybody around Joker too. We'll talk about MPJ in the last segment, but he was running to the corners like he always talks about. We talked about in preseason that everybody wanted him to run to the corners. Like he was doing that. Jeff Green knocking down shots really big. Like Jeff Green.
Jeff Green 2 games in a row knocking down. Yeah. I forgot to mention him. I should have.
Somebody mentioned in the chat. I do want to go ahead and talk about this when we talk about the starters. KCP is phenomenal. Just like he makes again, it's him and Bruce Brown both. They make so many plays defensively where it's just, they actually attack defensively. They're not just trying to not get beat. Like they're actively trying to disrupt you. They are actively doing things that make your offensive life worse. Like KCP steals, strips, and pickoffs, at midcourt sometimes. Like that's the defensive playmaking. And he's really good at those on top of being solid all over. Had some problems Malone mentioned this after the game, that they run that Minnesota set after you make a free throw, where it's just, they spread everybody out to the absolute corners and went downhill. Both he and Aaron Gordon had trouble with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Josh Giddey. But in general,
by the way, Thunderman, I don't think enough is made of how weird they play.
Yeah.
It's a very weird style of offense and defense that they play. Very unconventional on both ends of the court.
I mean, I think it's they get to experiment, and they need to experiment, and they try and find solutions with a very limited roster. Like Malone said,
here's the thing, Matt, because you're right. 100% this is by design of where they are as a team and also the limitations. Because you're right, they had JRE out there. Like the guys that were out there, if they didn't double like that, Yoke would have had 40 and both of them. But here's what's weird. I love Shai. I think you've heard me rave about him a lot. I always wonder, when you're the first guy into a team that's tanking, is it healthy for you? And I'm watching, like, what do? They ISO. They spread out and they run a bunch of, like, Shai was cooking in ISO. But I look at that and I go, what is he learning right now? Like, what is he doing? This is such a weird place to start your career. Not just being with the Thunder team, but going through these motions. I'm like, I don't know. I don't like it because I'm such a big fan of Shai.
What's interesting though is some of what you're talking about, because again, it was Harrison Wind actually mentioned this, that after every made free throw, they ran that exact same set. That they would just spread the guys out to the furthest corners and have them run ISO. And I asked Malone, we asked Malone about it, and he mentioned them running that and call it the Minnesota set. I caught Malone and was like, hey, why is it Minnesota? And he's like, I have no idea. That's what they call it. So that's their play call. But he had mentioned, he was like, that's actually an old Eddie Jordan scheme from back when Eddie Jordan ran the Wizards. They would run it with Gilbert Arenas, and they would just put the shooters deep in the corners to provide as much space. He's like, and it's essentially like, if you have a weapon that's good enough it allows them all of that space to work with. Like, to me, it's like, oh, you're just flattening everything out like they do with so many, heliocentric offenses. But it was also very targeted specifically after free throws, which I thought was like an interesting trigger mechanic. But anyway, do you have any thoughts on KCP? Like, other than just like, yeah, he's good. Like, do you have any thoughts on KCP?
No, for sure. Part of it is just that. But I think the broad thing is, I've seen enough to feel that Denver has an elite starting five. Is it the best? I don't know. The Warriors do some things. Denver always is in the negative of their starters. But I just seen enough to say they all fit together. They all just seem to be bought in, including KCP. They can defend. You can add Bruce as sort of a sixth guy, but also a situational starter. And I just look at all of them and I go, this is the best group that Denver's had, a cohesive group where they check all the boxes, or at least as many boxes as they ever have. And KCP is a big part of that.
I want to touch real briefly on Jamal. I've been to Ball Arena for 10 years now. This is my 11th season covering the team. And I've heard loud moments and great games, and I've seen great crowds. I've been in there with 2,000 people, and I've been there when it's absolutely packed to the rafters. I will tell you, I have never, ever heard it as loud as for Jamal's introduction. I have never, in my experience, been as blown away by how loud it was in the arena as it was for that moment. The second loudest moment was when they showed Peyton Manning on the Jumbotron one time. But the overwhelming, just like, it was like, I got chills. Like, it was so great. You could tell how excited he was. There was like a real energy in the building. And I thought Jamal did a really good job of not forcing things and settling in. And in that third quarter, he got cooking. MPJ was cooking. I thought MPJ, that's probably one of the better games I've seen from MPJ outside of the rebounding aspect. He dropped a lot of balls, but other than that,
I thought the Warriors one.
No, I'm talking
about the Thunder one.
The Thunder one. So here's what was kind of going on like, and I asked several people about this, just about like, what have you thought about MPJ? And so I asked this question. I was like, we know the numbers, like how much he scored, like had a great shooting night versus the Warriors. Like, has MPJ played well in the last 2 games? And they're like, I don't, like, they said the same thing that I thought, which is like, I think so, but I don't really know. And then I said, what do you think his plus minus is? It's like, and this is exactly what we talk about. That is like, it's just like, it's a massive positive. It's a massive positive. I thought particularly on Saturday night, though, after the first quarter in particular, I thought MPJ was really good.
He has blown me away with how much he is focused on playing within the offense, how much he doesn't seem to be hunting bad shots and just hunting good shots. And it's really stood out. And I hope that, one, he continues to do this in the days, weeks to come. But 2, that as he continues to do this, to me, there's a little bit of a prove it to him right now. And right now he's proving it. And I hope that he is rewarded for proving it with more shots, both because it's a reward for him personally, but also because it's a reward for the team. And when I say more shots, I'm not saying the team needs to, again, call ISOs or this or that. I just hope that this is a thing that it's like, hey, you know what? He's fitting in. Let's find him in the flow of the offense a little bit more, because guess what? When he catches the ball in the flow of the offense, he makes at least 50% of the threes and about 60% of the twos.
I was going to save this for third segment. Let's go ahead and do this now, and we can talk about like the bench, some more of the bench guys in the third. So I talked to MPJ after the game. It was just me and TJ McBride. We were the only ones in there. First time back in the locker room in 3 years. It was weird. I was nervous. I haven't been nervous in the locker room in a while. I gotta tell you, Adam, MPJ made more of an impression on me in that conversation than he has ever whenever he's spoken to reporters.
Wow. You should save this for the other side. This is too good.
Okay. Then
it's a great tease.
Let's take a break.
Tease it. It's too good.
Let's take a break.
I want to hear this. I have not heard this story, so
let's take a break. And when we come back, I'll tell you what MPJ had to say to TJ McBride of Maha Sports and I. When we come back on Locked On Nuggets. First, I got to say about BetOnline, your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. Adam, I lost a parlay this weekend. Do you know why I lost the parlay? I had Sixers minus 1,000 to beat the Spurs. I had the
They're in hell,
Sixers
man. They're in hell.
minus 1,000, and I lost a parlay because of it. The fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. I had a great Sunday, by the way. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, where the game starts. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making Locked On Nuggets your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. All right, final segment here with Adam Mares of DNVR here talking about the Nuggets wins. Like I said, TJ McBride, formerly of Mile High Sports, I should know, and I were in the locker room. And we're the only ones in there because what they've done this year is the NBA has demanded that at least 2 players do podium games. And Jamal did it, and KCP had a great game. So, like, Jamal, Joker, and KCP all went to the podium. But the locker rooms are also open, and I want to go in and actually talk to the guys. So I went in and was talking to MPJ, and I asked him a number of things. And one of the things I talked to him about was, like, you got a lot of corner looks tonight in the last 2 games. What are kind of your, what is working in that regard? And he was like, that's something that they've been stressing me. I'm really trying to run hard to the corners. And, honestly, like, part of it is they're finding me. Like, the guys are looking for me in those spots. And he said they have to double Nikola. Like, if they do not double him, it's, he's going to score. And so if they double him, the best place to double for that help to have to come from is from my side. And so I'm getting all these opportunities. And, like, what it really sounded like was, honestly, it sounded like he was nervous that he would just stand in the corner and that those looks would not come his way, and that he put in the work and he trusted it, and he's gotten, like, what he was hoping for. Like, he has gotten those kind of looks. TJ asked him about what it was like working with the second unit, because in those situations, he's not running. Basically, I'm going to paraphrase. It's like, you don't have to run Jokic ball. Like, you get to actually just, like, run, like, a more normal offense. You're not kind of centered around Jokic. You get a little bit more free reign to kind of do your thing. And he was like, yeah, I really enjoyed that. And he said, it's nice to be able to, he's like, with Joker, you have to kind of play within these team concepts because it's so high level. But he was like, in those second units, it's a little bit, I get to kind of fit into the things that I'm super comfortable doing. And then he was like, but really, when you get down to it, it's like, I need to do what the coaches need me to do. So if I need to work more in the offense in that second unit, or if I need to work, like, that's what's really important. And that was, like, a really good thing to hear. It's cliche talk, but it's also, like, it sounded genuine. And it's also good that he's not. 2 years ago, he gives an answer like, yeah, it's way better. It's actually not so overly complicated. He would have said
that way, the way you delivered it, to be honest, to me. So I'll have to hear the audio. Maybe it's me the audio or something.
Yeah. And then we kind of talked about defense, because Malone really credited him for the work that he's put in on that. And he said, I asked him, I was like, you're a few games back. It was that hard. And he was like, honestly, it was really hard. He's like, you can't really work on defense when you're doing individual drills and warm-ups and rehab. You can't really work on defense when you're doing open runs in practice. He's like, there's nothing that can really simulate it. He's like, I have to put the work in on that. And then, like, this was the big thing that he said. He said, I don't want to be a guy where people say, well, yeah, he's a great shooter, but I don't ever want to be that. And, like,
I thought I saw a quote come out that says, I don't want to be that for my whole career. And the reason I liked it is it implied that he knows he is that right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, the translation was very much not about, like, I want more of an offensive role. The translation was very much like I know how people look at me. And, like, I know how I am criticized. And it wasn't like and that's all wrong. Like, it sounded like the only way for me to change that perception is, like, I have to do the work. And so, like, I was just very impressed by Mike was genuine, and it wasn't necessarily the kind of, like, super performative version that sometimes he's put out there in different interviews. And part of this, like, he's done it more, but like it was a very good conversation. He was also talking about how glad he was to get the win. Like he was really glad to get the Thunder win on opening night, like to not have the letdown spot. He was pretty excited.
I have high hopes for Michael Porter, man. I'm so impressed with how he's played the last 5 games, 2 preseason, now 3 regular season. And his point totals have gone up a little bit when he had his last one, 22. And to be honest with you, they went 5 of 10. You can't complain. But he missed 2 or 3 that I thought he was going to make. Like, he missed 2 or 3 open ones. So I'm excited because I like seeing him play in the flow of the offense. And I just know if he keeps it up, he's going to start having 25-point games on the regular.
Let's talk Christian Braun, because I also spoke with him.
By the way, I'm seeing a lot of this. Sagaba says, I've done a full 180 on PJ. Dude rocks. And I've just seen a lot of that lately of like fans that are just starting to, I think, that were maybe more skeptical on MPJ coming around. And I like it. That's how it should happen.
Yeah. I think with Christian Braun, so this is my first time talking to him. That kid's going to have a long career.
Really?
He's going to have a long career in the NBA.
You're in on, huh?
So here's why. I asked him, I was like, look, you're a first round draft pick. You played an established program in Kansas. You played for Kansas. You played in big games. But this is the NBA. And like, this is your 3rd NBA game. Has the game in these moments and this experience been more than what you expected, less than what you expected, about what you expected? And he was like, honestly, it was about what I expected. And he's like, I've been in these moments. And he's like, they didn't draft me to be a project. He's like, they didn't draft me to be a guy that works his way in. I need to be ready to play now. And if I'm going to do that, I need to play defense and I need to hit shots.
Right.
Like, and it was nice because he rides this edge of arrogant in terms of like, he knows how good he is. And the kid's like, I mean, he's from, again, Kansas, right? Like, super important program. Yeah. First round draft pick. And yet there is a full confidence and like self-awareness that comes with it that isn't always there in rookies. And when I like saw that, he avoided a couple of easy trip up points in the interview questions. They weren't designed that way. They're just things that I've seen other guys trip over that he like definitely stepped around. So as far as like the media side goes, he's going to be fine. But that also speaks to like his mental, like his preparation and his approach and his like level of professionalism. Like Christian Braun is going to be fine in the NBA.
I do think he knows knowing what makes you good is such an important thing. Like, and I do think he fully understands that. But his defense, Matt, that's the thing to me. Yeah. His defense is really, really strong. I mean, to the point where, look, you have KCP and you have Bruce Brown, and having 2 defenders at that level is something Denver just really hasn't had. I don't think at any point. Christian Braun might make it 3. And I think it's important for them to be able to get there by the end of the year. You know, he's able to do the things that are just like basketball things, move his feet, stay in front of guys, whatever. But, learning the game at the NBA level and the pace and being able to read all the different things so that when the playoffs come, you're not being fooled this or that. But I have high hopes for him. He had really good understanding of who his personnel was in that Warriors game. If you can get to the point where you have 3 great perimeter containment defenders, Christian Braun represents a weird X factor that raises Denver's chances at a title a meaningful amount. More so than I think most people would think, because, again, just having an extra defender to throw at Steph and Dame and Curry and whoever else you might have to guard is huge.
I actually really agree. I think you were on this early, and I just think you were right.
I want to be clear, though, because I don't want to take the victory lap here. I didn't know if he was there. I just know that was the thing you needed. So, like, I don't want to say, like, oh, I saw him playing as well defensively, because honestly, these last 2 games were the best I've seen him play defensively ever. So that was, like, even above any of my expectations. But I just knew you needed to have it. You had to have somebody that could do it.
One thing I noticed is that sometimes when he digs, some guys will dig and they're just like, they're moving their body physically there, right? Like, they're just like, I am standing near this person now. Christian Braun digs and actually comes up with the ball. Like there are times when I'm like, well, this is going to wind up with like the guy gets a the ball gets knocked loose, he goes back up with it and he scores off the bank shot. And instead it's like, oh no, Christian Braun has the ball and he's going the other way. And it's pretty impressive. We should talk about some concerns, I guess, from the first couple of games going into the Blazers game on Monday. We'll obviously have your recap on Tuesday night. My big one is honestly Bones. I did not expect for my biggest concern on the second unit to be not DeAndre Jordan, but it's not. DeAndre Jordan actually I think has played pretty well. I haven't noticed there are very few.
Look, the first game of the season he was horrendous, but you're right. These last two. Well, I guess he didn't play in the last one, so really it was just the Warriors game.
Yeah. Well, I guess my thing is I thought the minutes were terrible, but I haven't noticed a lot of things where I've been pointing at DJ and been like, that is a problem. I actually thought Jeff Green was worse in game one than almost anybody.
Jeff Green was really bad.
Yeah.
He was also, here's the thing though, Matt. DeAndre Jordan did not play last game and he played 6 minutes the first game. So you might not have noticed the bad things because he's literally only played one game.
Okay.
But he did play good. But in that one, he was very good. So he deserves credit for it.
Yeah, that's fair. What are your thoughts on where Bones is at right now?
Like I said, the first 5 minutes that he was in, so to bridge the end of the first quarter and the start of the second quarter, were some of the best I've ever seen him play. Outside of that stretch, it hasn't necessarily been great. So would I say concerned? I don't know that I'm necessarily concerned with Bones, but I would love to see him play better on Monday night in Portland.
I'll say this. The concern is, I don't even think is the right term for it. Because you bring up a pretty fair point. Because if you're like, oh, do you think the Bones might not be like ready for a leap or as good or whatever? It's like, no, I just don't think he's played well. Because I always talk about this, right? And this is like 3 games versus I think guys will have good bad months. Jeff Green's gonna have a horrendous month at some point in the next 4 months. He's gonna have an entire month where it's just like Jeff Green has been bad this entire month, and then he's gonna have a month where it's like the last 2 games where it's like Jeff Green's been really good this month. I've seen that before. There's sometimes it stretches of 5 games, sometimes it's 10 games. So like Bones can have these bad stretches and move past it. I actually think I'm actually kind of impressed with Malone that he hasn't gone to Ish. From the standpoint of, I thought about this a lot with watching them from the game Friday through the game Saturday night. One of the things that, and this may not be genuine. This is my, I'm placing this on the projection. I get a sense that there's a feeling of this is going to work. We're going to have to work on it. Like we're going to have to figure it out, but this is going to work. This team's good.
Yeah, maybe. I will say one thing you're hinting on, Michael Malone, game number 2 and 3 of a long season. He has veterans. He throws out Christian Braun, a rookie. Bones Highland, to your point, has had some very down stretches, and Malone's sticking with him. So this MO about Malone not playing rookies, we're only 3 games in, but he's kind of going to 2 very young players and giving them very important roles. So and that is more evidence to your point of they might be looking at it and saying, we know these guys are good. We know they're not going to be good every night, but we're good enough to survive, and we're just going to stick with them.
I didn't catch the DNVR postgame show on Saturday. Did you guys talk about Zeke?
Not for an extended period of time. He wasn't very noteworthy, I didn't think, in that performance, unfortunately, because I don't know how much. Those are the types of chances I think he's going to get, these little spot chances every now and then.
Yeah, like this was the night where it's like DJ's off and he gets an opportunity, and Media Row was a little bit beyond noteworthy in terms of the negative.
I think that's probably fair.
So, we'll see what goes. We'll see. And again, I don't want to do the same thing with Bones. I don't want to do it with Zeke. Like, okay, had a bad game.
Yeah.
We'll see how he does next time.
I think that's fair.
One final thing, I did ask Malone about why he mentioned that they're over helping in the Thunder game, and that's one of the reasons they've given up a lot of threes, and that stands out on the film. Like I've when I went back and did film study on Saturday morning, it was just like it gave me flashbacks to 2017, where I was just like, why are your guys like on the other side of the floor? Like your weak side corner man is literally on the opposite block. That's how much they're over helping. And I asked Malone about it, and he's like, "Look, some of it's timing, but honestly, most of it's just KYP. On certain guys, I don't care. Like, I'm fine if they help that far off. I'm fine if they aggressively help. But when it's Mike Muscala, who is a proven shooter, you can't do that."
That was Jokic especially. Jokic was definitely not running out at the three-point shooters, and then they got really, really hot.
But it wasn't just, and he kind of mentioned other guys too. I forget who else he was mentioning on the Thunder, but like just that, like, you've got to know the shooters that you're guarding, and be aware of you can't help that much in those types of situations. There's actually a play where I broke it down on Twitter. Like, KCP is above the break on the wing, and you can tell he wants to help on the pick and roll drive because Joker's trying to play contain versus Steph. But he's locked on Clay. So he's like, I gotta stay within, I have to be able to take one step and put the hand up. And that's the NBA is hard. This is a nice reminder. The first couple of days, the NBA is very hard, Adam. That's my
thing. Whenever I'm breaking down these plays, I always get people that are like, well, that play doesn't look very hard. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's because all of these guys are really good at everything. They don't have to do crazy stuff. That it's not that crazy. Let me ask you one fun question just to get at, Matt. What's more likely to happen? Michael Porter shoots 50% from three this year, or Jokic averages a triple-double?
MPJ shoots 50% from the field, or from three.
He's currently right at 50%. I think he's 12 of 24, so or something like that. I mean, the guy, man, he gets good shots. He looks like he's going to make all of them. He makes tough shots. I don't know what his percentage is going to be this year, but I just don't feel like this is such an outlier of a performance right now. I don't think he'll shoot 50%, but I just don't think it's an outlier either.
And look, Joker, I'll tell you this, like, it shouldn't be heavily weighted. Like, you shouldn't have to lay a lot of money on either side, because if they're gonna knock down shots, that's all you got to do. Like, you're gonna have looks in this offense. Joker's so good, you're gonna have looks. It was really funny that they doubled him the entire game, and then at the end of the game, he gave one head fake and put the game away. And
oh, I mean, what did he have in the fourth quarter? Like 12 points or something. Yeah. He's the best. Tomorrow's game, Monday's game, is actually be a fun one because Damian Lillard's on fire out the gate. I predicted he would be terrible this year. He's back. Well, I just predicted that these injuries maybe catch up to him, and he's a little old, and we'll see. But he's right now at this moment on fire. But Denver has bodies to throw at him like they never have before. I'm so curious. This is like another big test for them. And then Nurkic generally tries to guard Jokic one-on-one without a bunch of doubles. So maybe this is a game that Jokic gets to kind of see what he has to do to force the defense. So I'm just it's a fun matchup. Plus, Portland's undefeated. So we'll see what happens.
Something to look out for in terms of a concern point. Josh Hart has become a top-level rebounder, and I never thought I would say that. He's really good on the glass, and not only is he good on the glass, but because he's got guard handle, Hart will grab it and then immediately go from the middle of the floor and get to half court before you are set. So if you do not rebound, the Blazers are getting transition points on you off of that, not off of a long rebound, like a short rebound. Josh Hart will hurt you there. Blazers are pretty good. This is gonna be a good game tomorrow night.
Should be fun.
All right, let's go wrap it up.
Wait, you've been predicting. Do you have a prediction?
Portland. I haven't been perfect. I took the Warriors, so I haven't been, my perfect streak is gone. I did bet Portland just because of the spot. It's about the number. It's 3.5. And that was too much for me because I think Portland's pretty good and I like the spot for them. But I didn't put a full unit on it because this to me feels very coin flippy, and that number is very much like it could be free throws, right? Mm-hmm. So opportunity for Denver though, division game. The division games are important. All right, gonna wrap it up. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have yourselves a great start to your week. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday with your recap from the Blazer game here